This was the first time Laura and Kun saw such a strange undead. It was a humanoid undead that had a white, almost transparent, skeleton. It wore a gorgeous white robe and it was holding a white magic staff. It didn't take much to figure out that these were a light mage's equipment. A white skeleton was not worthy of attention. However, the bones of this skeleton wasn't simply white, but a crystal clear color that sometimes shined with a holy light. This skeleton was indeed worthy of attention. An undead that gave off a holy feeling. Were the gods living in hell? Laura and Kun were stunned by the skeleton that was standing behind Green. They really didn't know what to say to describe this undead. Its skeleton was really too strange. Zhao looked at the two's expressions, then he looked at Nya, who was standing beside Laura. She was a petite maid with very little presence, just like how Zhao was. The look on her face wasn't the same as Laura's or Kun's. They had a look of shock, but Nya's expression was more of curiosity. Yes, it was curiosity, not surprise. Zhao couldn't help but think that Nya was interesting. Her eyes were pure, clearly reflecting the thoughts inside her head, like a pure crystal. This was the first girl Zhao had ever seen that had pure eyes. Don't forget that Meg would sometimes have a sly look in her eyes. But Nya's eyes were pure, like she could heal your soul. Eventually, Zhao recovered, and then he smiled at the white skeleton. Gamma, say hello to Miss Laura and Mr. Kun. Like in a traditional aristocratic ceremony, Gamma extended his greetings to them like a gentleman. He was so graceful about it that for a moment, Laura and Kun forgot that he was an undead, and they greeted him back. Afterwards, they both felt a little embarrassed about it. Curious, Laura asked, Mr. Zhao, you mean to say that this undead was Garen? He's no longer Garen. In the future, the world will only know him as Gamma, Zhao said. Okay, Gamma, you can leave now. Gamma bowed to them, then turned and walked away. Laura stared at Gamma's departing back, then she faced Zhao. Mr. Zhao, what level of undead is Gamma? Zhao thought about it. I think he's at the 7th level, but I'm not quite sure. Laura and Kun saw a glimmer of shock in each other's eyes. They were very clear on the fact that a black mage turning a dead man into a high-level undead was very difficult. Mr. Zhao, does Gamma still have his memories from when he was alive? Kun quickly asked. Zhao shook his head. This is not so. At the beginning, he just became an ordinary undead, but then I used an arcane magic that allowed him to remember how to cast light spells. Although this made it so that he's no longer low level, it still didn't help him recover any other memories. Laura and Kun didn't really understand, how could an undead be able to use light spells? They really wanted to know what secret law that Zhao had discovered. It was very clear that a lot of black mages had been searching for ways to turn their low-level undeads into high-level ones, but after so many years of research, they had made little progress. If those black mages were to know that Zhao had a way to do this, they would all go crazy. The two looked at Zhao, not understanding why he was telling them this momentous thing. But then they saw how Green and Meg were watching them with a determined look, and although Zhao's face was covered by the veil of his black hat, they could feel that he was watching them as well. Suddenly, Kun was able to figure it out, and he quickly said, Please rest assured, Mr. Zhao. No word of what we see or hear will leak from us. I guarantee this on the honor of the Marquis clan. Laura quickly nodded, agreeing with what Kun had said. Zhao smiled. The two of you don't really need to make such an oath. To tell you the truth, although I can increase the level of an undead, it only works under precise conditions. It is simply impossible for others to learn how to do it. Kun and Laura certainly didn't believe him, but they both nodded. After that, Laura waved at Nya and directed her to walk out of the room. Then Laura turned to Zhao. "Today, we have bothered you, Mr. Zhao, because I wanted to thank you for saving my life. So we prepared 2 small gifts. I hope that you will accept them." Soon, Nya ran back and while holding 2 long boxes. One of them had a dark robe, which Laura took out. "Mr. Zhao, this is a moonlight robe, which is a fairly decent equipment for a black mage." Having said that, she presented it to Zhao. Zhao stood up, looked over the robe, and then he nodded. "Then I'll be polite, Miss Laura." He took the moonlight robe and gave it to Green to hold. When Laura saw Zhao take the dark robe, she couldn't help but feel relieved. She then grabbed the other long box and gently opened it, revealing a magic staff. "Mr. Zhao, this is a wind element magic staff, but because it has been soaked in the blood of a wind spirit beast, it can also strengthen black magic as well. I hope that you will accept this as well." Zhao laughed. Miss Laura sure is determined. "To be honest, this staff is of no use to me, but my maid just so happens to be a wind mage. I have been searching for an appropriate magic staff for her, so Miss Laura's help has just come at the right time." He picked up the magic staff and gave it to Meg. Laura didn't think that Zhao would give this staff straight to Meg, but she didn't say anything about it. After all, technically Zhao still accepted the magic staff. Meg had a happy face as she held on to the wind magic staff. "Thank you, Master," she said to Zhao. Zhao nodded, then he turned to Laura. "Since Miss Laura gave us these 2 gifts, of course I can also not be stingy. We should head into the dining room for lunch. Please follow me, Miss Laura, Mr. Kun, and young lady." Having said that, he led the way. Laura and Kun politely followed behind Zhao. Soon a few people arrived at the large dining room, where Merin had prepared lunch. When Merin saw Zhao come in, she quickly smiled and said, "Master, the food is ready." Zhao nodded, then he said, "Miss Laura, Mr. Kun, young lady, please sit down. Here we are not like those big aristocracy where there are too many rules. We all sit together to eat." Although Laura and Kun were a little against this curious practice, they didn't say anything. They both sat down along with Nya. With Meg's help, Merin brought out the meals for everyone. Today's food was very rich roasted rabbit with some fire fish, and vegetables that had been produced by the space. Merin went all out for this lunch. Earlier, the Buda clan had a discussion which resulted in this meal to give Laura a taste of these vegetables, all in order to further their cooperation for the future. Laura and Kun took note of the dishes on the table. In addition to the roasted rabbit meat, the fire fish, and the magic radishes, there were also some vegetables that they were unfamiliar with. Not only that, but the cooking methods seemed to also be a little special. Soon all the meals were served. These were very special dishes. Laura carefully looked over the table, but she found that she didn't know what cuisine this was. Kun was also frowning at the dishes. To tell the truth, he considered himself very knowledgeable, but the food on the table was something he had never seen before.